A quick refresher here, law of cosines works for side angle side or side side side. And so we have the formulas given to us. Again, you really only have to know one of them. If you know one of them, you can figure out the other ones as far as just knowing like what goes where. But when we get to the quiz on Friday, on 8.1 and 8.2, I'll let you write down all the formulas for law of sines, law of cosines. And with law of cosines, remember, we also have the modified formulas where you solve for the angle. So if you write all of them down, I will check all of them. If you just write one, I'll just check one. Like in Algebra 2, most people just wrote one version of it and then they just went from there, which is fine. But if you write every single one, I'll check them just in case you have something wrong. That way you know, or whatever. But and then the area formulas, of course. We have the area formula that you use with the information you would get in law of sines. And then we have the area formula that you get when you have side, side, side. So the law of cosine situation, which obviously we're not using like law of cosines to find the area, but that's where the area formula comes into play, which is Heron's area formula, which is what we'll be using here in just a couple minutes. But yesterday we looked through a couple examples. Let's see, these ones were side angle side. Also, that one was side, side, side. Side angle side. Let me see if I can find another one that's side, side, side. Let's see, 36. So again, still solving the triangle. They give us side A is 4, side B is 5, and side C is 8. And these are actually, well, they are technically given to you as like 4.0, 5.0, 8.0, but we don't need to write the 0. We can just have the whole numbers there. And so just to go back and refresh, because we had the one yesterday that we did where we ended up realizing we should have chosen the smaller side first to work with. So if it's side angle side, once you solve for that third side, at that point, then you need to solve for the smaller angle, okay? But if it is side, 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 what we learned was that you need to find the largest angle. So that means the one with the largest side. So in this case, I need to find angle C first. So I'm going to set up to put my angles here. So I'm looking for this one first. And so I'm going to have to use the manipulated formula for law of cosine. So I'm going to go through as if I did not memorize the manipulated formula, and I'm going to manipulate it again just so that we see it. Because honestly, I think it's easier to manipulate it than try to memorize it, but that's just me. So we've got the formula is c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cosine c. So if I want to solve for angle C, I'm going to subtract a squared and b squared. So it's going to be c squared minus a squared minus b squared. And then over here, this is being multiplied by negative 2ab, the cosine of c. Let me reiterate that. So I've already subtracted this stuff over, and I'm just to not have to keep writing the steps over and over again. I'm going to go ahead and divide by negative 2ab. So negative 2ab equals the cosine of c. Then I can undo cosine by doing the inverse cosine. So I'm going to get rid of that and write inverse cosine over here of all of that there. And so remember, when we go to put this information in the calculator, we've just got to be really careful of parentheses and stuff so that things don't get confusing as far as like what's happening, because that's honestly the most common mistake, is just mistyping it into the calculator. But as long as you have your work shown, the good thing is I can be like, okay, your work is right. Most likely you just typed it in wrong. So you don't lose as many points as long as your setup is right. So the inverse cosine of 8 squared minus 4 squared minus 5 squared over negative 2 times 4 times 5. So then when I type that in, I just got to be really careful about it. Like I said, I like to use the fraction bar when I do it just because I think it's easier, but a squared minus 4, I said a squared, 8 squared minus 4 squared minus 5 squared all over negative 2 times 4 times 5. So angle C is 125 degrees. So then I'm going to work my way down. The next angle would be angle B. So I'm going to switch over to law of sines just because it's easier. So I've got the sine of B over 5 equals the sine of 125 over 8. And so then B equals the inverse sine of 5 sine of 125 over 8. And again, I can do that in steps, but I just don't want to have to keep writing it over and over again. So inverse sine of 5 sine 125 over 8. So that is 31 degrees. I'm rounding. And then angle A would be last, which I can obviously just do 180 minus 125 minus 31, which gives me 24 degrees. And that all makes sense there as far as that goes. So biggest side is the biggest angle and so on and so forth. So any questions about actually solving with the law of cosines, typing it in or anything like that? All right, I'm going to jump down to the area problems, which are like on their totally own page, it's like way away. Anyways, so number 66, and there's a ton of like word problems in this section, but we're not going to do those. We've done some trig word problems, I guess, along the way, but if you end up taking pre-cal next year, we do a semi-decent amount of them. But still not anything too crazy. So let's see, 66, we've got side A is 22, and these are in inches. Since it's area, I do care about the units. B is 45 inches, and C is 31 inches. So again, let me write this so we know we're not solving triangles. So to find the area, I have the 3 sides. That means I need Heron's area formula. So I have to find S, which is 1/2 of all the sides added together. So I've got S equals 1/2 times 22 plus 45 plus 31. And that's nice. That comes out to should be a nice number. Sometimes you end up with like a decimal, like 0.5 because of being half of whatever. So that ends up being 49. But the good news is, even when it's a decimal, it's just like 0.5 because it's half of it. So I would write it as a decimal, not a fraction, of course, if I'm doing that. But area equals the square root of S, so 49, times S minus A, so 49 minus 22, times S minus B, so 49 minus 45, times S minus C, so 49 minus 31. And then I just throw that all under one huge radical, and I just literally type it in exactly as I have it written. So 49 times 49 minus 22. As long as you put those parentheses, your calculator will figure out what it's supposed to be doing. And so when I do that, I'm just going to round to the nearest whole number, 309 inches squared. Since it's area, we have our units squared. If you're not given units, then you would either write units squared, or sometimes in the Algebra 2 book, they don't give you units on area problems. and they just want you to just write the number. So if I don't give you units on the quiz or the test, as the case may be, then just don't worry about it. Let's see, one more of these. Those. All right, I'm gonna modify the numbers a little bit on 68 because I don't want to use decimal numbers. So I'm just gonna round them to their whole number. So A is 25 yards, B is 38 yards, and C is 20 yards. So I'm going to do the same thing, find S, which is half of all the sides added together. So 25 plus 38 plus 20, of course half of that. So this ends up being 41.5, so this is one that ends up being a decimal. In your book, the reason I modified these numbers to make them whole numbers is because they were decimals, which means S wouldn't be something 0.5. Which I'm going to just give you ones that are going to be either the whole number or something 0.5 so that it's easy math to do. So then area is the square root of 41.5 times 41.5 minus 25 times 41.5 minus 38 times 41.5 minus 20. So then the square root of 41.5 times 41.5 minus 25 times 41.5 minus 38 times 41.5 minus 20. And I get an area rounded to 227, and it was yards squared. So for this section, yes. So if you're using this area formula, you have to have the three sides given to you. The other one that we had the other day was the formula that's area is 1/2 like AB sine C. So in that case, you have to be given two sides and an angle that doesn't go with those. So if you have an angle, you have to use this formula basically. If you don't have an angle, you use this area formula. So. But yeah, that's a good question. Okay, so I did not give y'all any questions yesterday, correct? Okay. So while I'm on this page, I'm going to write these down, but 65 and 67 are the area problems, so I got to flip back to the other one. Let's see. Go 19, 25, 31, and 35. So 4 law of cosines and then 2 area problems there for you. And remember, law of cosines only produces one triangle, so shouldn't be too bad.